Jonathan Roumie is the actor who portrays Jesus Christ in the hit TV show The Chosen. Having just launched its 5th season, the show has already been watched by over 280 million people around the world, winning Jonathan legions of fans and critical acclaim. And in this one-on-one interview, Jonathan opens up about how he was struggling in life before taking on this incredible role. The lights in the studio cast a warm and inviting glow as the host leans forward, settling into a deeply conversational and engaging rhythm, looking across the table at a man whose life has been completely turned upside down by a phenomenon that nobody in the secular entertainment industry ever saw coming. "Thank you so much for being here today, Jonathan," the host begins, a genuine smile spreading across his face as he acknowledges the sheer magnitude of the moment. "Thank you for having me," Jonathan replies, his voice immediately reflecting that deeply reflective and spiritually resonant tone that millions of people have come to associate with his on-screen presence. "It is a phenomenal blessing to be sitting here with you today," he continues, shifting slightly in his chair as the weight of the journey he has been on seems to settle over the room. The host wastes no time diving into the staggering reality of Jonathan's current life, pointing out the absolute contrast between his past and his present. "We are talking about a show that is completely crowdfunded," the host notes, emphasizing the technical terms of the industry that highlight just how unique this project is. "It is a crowdfunded miracle, truly, reaching almost 300 million people across 175 countries. And yet, not that long ago, your reality was vastly different, wasn't it?" Jonathan nods slowly, a solemn expression washing over his features as he prepares to take the audience on a journey through the valley of his early career. "Yeah, it really was," he admits, his tone dripping with an emotionally raw vulnerability that instantly captivates anyone listening. "Before all of this, before the global recognition and the meetings with 2 popes, I was just another actor trying to survive in a brutal industry," he explains. The host smiles at the mention of the popes, seamlessly injecting a moment of lighthearted humor into the dialogue to balance the heavy spiritual themes that are sure to follow. "Now, before we get to the really tough times, we have to talk about Rome," the host says, chuckling slightly. "You went from being an unrecognized actor to literally being unable to walk the streets of Rome without being mobbed, and then you find yourself face to face with the Holy Father." Jonathan laughs, a rich and genuine sound that fills the room. "It was surreal," he says, his eyes lighting up with the memory. "I had the profound honor of meeting Pope Francis and previously Pope Benedict, and it is just an experience you cannot adequately put into words. I remember standing there, trying to navigate the language barriers, feeling completely overwhelmed by the gravity of the pontificate and the historical weight of the Vatican, and yet there was this incredible sense of peace." The host interjects, grinning, "And I heard there was even a moment where you managed to slip in a reference to the Chicago Bears amid all that holiness." Jonathan bursts into laughter, nodding enthusiastically. Yes, I did," he confesses, shaking his head at his own audacity. "You know me, I have to bring a little bit of home wherever I go, even to the Vatican, and it was just a beautiful human moment that broke the ice and reminded me that despite the grandeur, we are all just people connecting on a human level. But that connection, that ability to laugh and find joy, it wasn't always so easy for me." Jonathan pivots, the humor slowly fading from his voice as he steers the conversation back toward the darker days of his past. The host leans in, employing active listening and reflective questioning to draw out the depths of Jonathan's story. "Tell me about New York and Los Angeles," the host prompts gently. "You were out there, trying to cultivate a career, trying to activate your dreams, but the reality was far more devastating than people realize." Jonathan exhales deeply, a heavy sigh that carries years of frustration and pain. "I spent years, decades really, just struggling," he begins, his voice dropping to a near whisper as the memory of his depression and anxiety surfaces. "I was doing survival jobs, driving for rideshare companies, working catering gigs, anything to just keep the lights on. I had sacrificed everything for this dream, a dream that felt like it was constantly slipping through my fingers. I was trying to honor my father's unfulfilled dreams as well, carrying this immense burden of parental sacrifice on my shoulders, feeling like I was failing not just myself, but my family." The host nods empathetically, mirroring the actor's struggle and aligning it with the universal human experience of trying to make ends meet. "It is a story so many people can relate to," the host observes. "That desperate feeling of having nothing left, of checking your bank account and feeling that pit in your stomach." Jonathan agrees vehemently. "Exactly," he says. "And it culminated in this one specific day that I will never, ever forget. It was the turning point of my entire existence. I woke up and I was completely broken. I had exactly $20 left in my pocket, $20 to my name. I had no food, I was drowning in debt, the rent was due, and I had absolutely no way to pay it. I was drowning in a sea of despair, and I just wept. I fell to my knees in my tiny apartment and I wept bitter, devastating tears. The host watches him closely, recognizing the transformative power of this moment. "And what did you do?" the host asks softly. "I surrendered," Jonathan says, the power word echoing in the quiet studio. "I completely and totally surrendered. I looked up and I said, God, I cannot do this anymore. I am done. If you want me to be an actor, you have to make a way, because I have nothing left. If you want me to quit and do something else, tell me, and I will do it. I just surrender my entire life, my career, my finances, my future, into your hands. I surrender." It was the most terrifying and yet the most liberating moment of my life. I gave up the illusion of control. And the host, visibly moved, replies, "And the very same day, your life changed forever." Jonathan smiles, a serene and knowing smile. "The very same day," he confirms. Later that afternoon, I got a call from Dallas Jenkins. He was putting together this little project, a short film for his church, and he wanted me to play Jesus. I had worked with him before, but this felt different. I said yes, not knowing that this small yes would propagate into something that would change the trajectory of my entire life and touch the lives of hundreds of millions of people. The host guides the narrative smoothly from the chronological event of the surrender to the massive success of The Chosen, transitioning into the philosophical and psychological implications of the role. "Now, you are playing the most famous figure in human history," the host states, framing the magnitude of the situation. "You are portraying the Son of God. That is not just a role, that is a monumental spiritual and psychological burden. How do you navigate the weight of that, the fear of being typecast in a secular industry, and the sheer responsibility of being the face of Jesus for a new generation?" Jonathan takes a moment to collect his thoughts, clearly aware of the gravity of the question. "It is an incredibly heavy burden," he admits, his tone deeply reflective. "Playing Jesus is not something you just clock in and clock out for. It requires a level of spiritual warfare that I was entirely unprepared for. The enemy does not want this story told. The enemy does not want people drawing closer to Christ. So, the spiritual attacks, the doubts, the physical exhaustion, it is all very real. I have to constantly rely on the sacraments, particularly the Eucharist, to sustain me. I try to stay rooted in my faith community and remember the great cloud of witnesses cheering us on. As for being typecast, honestly, if I am going to be typecast as anyone, being typecast as Jesus Christ is a pretty phenomenal problem to have. I am perfectly fine with it. I have committed to using whatever platform God gives me to glorify Him." The host smiles, appreciating the humility and vulnerability Jonathan displays. "You speak about this with such grace, but I imagine the fan encounters can be overwhelming. People look at you and they see Him. They bring their pain, their trauma, their prayers to you. How do you handle that emotional weight?" Jonathan's eyes well up with tears as the conversation shifts to the profound impact the show has had on individuals. "It is devastatingly beautiful," he says, his voice trembling slightly. "People come up to me and they are weeping. They share the most intimate, heartbreaking stories of their lives. They tell me how the show saved their marriage, or pulled them out of suicidal depression, or brought them back to the church after decades away. But there is one story, one encounter that absolutely broke me." The host leans in, the engagement triggers of emotional resonance and awe fully activated. "Please share it with us," the host urges gently. Jonathan takes a deep breath, visibly steeling himself against the rising tide of emotion. "I was at a fan event," he begins, the scene painting itself vividly in the minds of the audience. "And this mother comes up to me. She is pushing a wheelchair, and in the wheelchair is her young son. He is severely disabled, unable to speak, unable to move on his own. And this mother, she looks at me with tears streaming down her face, and she grabs my hands. She looks deep into my eyes and she says, 'I know you are just an actor. I know you are not him. But when I watch you, I feel like he is looking at me. Please pray for my son. Pray for a miracle.'" Jonathan's voice breaks and he pauses, the raw humanity of the moment filling the silence. "I stood there," he continues, wiping a tear from his cheek, "and I felt so incredibly small. I felt entirely unworthy. Who am I? I am just a flawed, sinful man. I am just a guy from New York who was driving a cab a few years ago, and here is this mother pouring out her deepest agony, looking for a sliver of hope. I wept with her. We just stood there and wept together. I prayed over her son, asking God to bring them peace and healing in whatever way He saw fit. It was a devastating realization of the influence this show has. It is not just television, it is a ministry. It is a lifeline for people who are hurting. The host, clearly affected by the story, nods slowly, validating the spiritual struggle and the deep connection forged through Jonathan's humility. That is a powerful, powerful story, the host says softly. It perfectly encapsulates the transformative nature of what you are doing. You are not just acting, you are a vessel. And speaking of being a vessel, taking on the physical toll of this role must be excruciating, especially as we move into the later seasons. Filming the crucifixion, for instance, what was that like? Jonathan shudders slightly at the memory. It was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life, both physically and spiritually, he confesses. Hanging there, even simulated, you feel a fraction of the agony he endured. The physical pain of the harness, the cold, the exhaustion, it all pales in comparison to the psychological weight of trying to comprehend that level of sacrifice. I had to continually discern my own unworthiness while trying to honor the reality of his love for us. It really forces you to examine your own life, your own flaws, and even contemplate things like purgatory and our ultimate need for his mercy. The host transitions smoothly toward the conclusion, summarizing the journey from ambitious but struggling actor to a globally recognized figure who uses his platform to inspire hope and reinforce faith. Jonathan, your journey is a testament to the power of divine intervention and absolute surrender. You have devoted your life to this, and the fruits of that devotion are evident in the hundreds of millions of lives touched. As we look forward to the future impact of the show, I want to make sure everyone knows how to continue following this incredible journey. The host seamlessly integrates the soft promotional call to action, keeping it informative and low friction to capitalize on the deep emotional investment built over the past hour. And Season 5 has just premiered, the host announces with enthusiasm. It's launched. It's on Amazon. It's on TV networks around the world. And people can look up the website The Chosen, where they can watch the previous seasons free of charge, which is awesome. It is an absolute gift to the world, and we are so grateful for your part in it. Jonathan smiles warmly, the heavy emotions of the interview settling into a peaceful, uplifting resolution. Thank you, he says, his voice filled with genuine gratitude. It has been a powerful conversation, and I am so grateful to be able to share my heart with you and your audience. I just want to encourage anyone out there who is struggling, anyone who feels like they are at the end of their rope with their own $20 in their pocket. Do not give up. Surrender it to God. Let Him write the rest of your story, because His plans are always infinitely more phenomenal than anything we could ever cultivate on our own. The host nods, a heartfelt mutual blessing passing between them as the interview draws to a close. Amen to that, the host concludes. Jonathan Roumie, thank you for your time, your vulnerability, and your incredible witness. God bless you, and God bless the continued success of The Chosen. And God bless you, Jonathan replies, offering a final, peaceful smile as the screen fades to black, leaving the audience deeply moved, spiritually challenged, and eagerly anticipating the next chapter of the story.